Jake Morrison walked out of his repair shop and stretched his arms. His hands were covered in black grease from working on engines all day. The space station was busy as always. Aliens from different planets walked past him. Some had 4 arms, some had scales, and some looked almost human but with strange eyes. He had been living on Station Helix 7 for 3 years now. It was a huge trading post in space where ships came to buy and sell things. Jake fixed broken ships and machines. Most aliens thought humans were not very smart because Earth was new to space travel, but Jake was good at his job. He could fix things that other mechanics gave up on. Jake was hungry and wanted to get some food. As he walked through the station's main street, he heard loud voices. A crowd of people stood near a big store called Galactic Essentials. Jake walked closer to see what was happening. In the middle of the crowd stood a tall alien woman. She was almost 7 feet tall. Her skin was covered in beautiful scales that changed colors between red and gold. She had bright yellow eyes with thin black lines in the middle like a cat. 2 curved horns grew from her head, and a long tail moved behind her. She looked angry and tired. The store manager stood in front of her. He was short and fat with many eyes all over his face. His 4 arms were crossed over his chest. "I have money," the woman said. Her voice was musical but firm. "I need supplies. Medical items, food, and power cells for my ship." The manager shook his head. "We don't sell to Draconians. It's company policy. Your kind caused problems here before." "That was not me," she said. Her tail moved faster now, showing she was upset. "I have never been to this station before today." "Does not matter. Your species, your problem. Leave now or I will call security." Jake felt angry. He had seen this kind of treatment before. When humans first came to space, some aliens treated them badly too. They judged all humans based on what 1 or 2 humans did. It was not fair. The Draconian woman looked sad. Her shoulders dropped and she turned to leave. That's when Jake noticed she was limping. He looked closer and saw a dark spot on her clothes near her side. She was hurt and bleeding. Jake did not think. He just acted. "Hey," he called out loudly. The woman turned and looked at him. Her yellow eyes showed confusion and worry. Jake gave her a small smile and nodded his head toward his shop. "Come with me," he said quietly. The woman did not move at first. Her tail wrapped around her leg like she was protecting herself. "Why would you help me, human?" Jake shrugged his shoulders. "Because that guy is mean and you need help. Also, you are bleeding." He kept his voice low so others would not hear. Her hand moved to her side quickly. She looked down and saw the blood. After a moment, she nodded slowly. "Okay, but if you are trying to trick me, I'm not," Jake said kindly. "I'm just a mechanic who does not like seeing people treated badly." "Come on." Jake led her away from the crowd. People stared at them as they walked. It was strange to see a human helping a Draconian. The 2 species did not usually talk to each other much. His workshop was in a quiet part of the station. It was cheaper to rent space there because it was near the noisy recycling machines. A sign outside said Morrison's Repairs. "If it's broke, I'll fix it," in 2 languages. Inside, the shop was messy but organized. Tables covered with tools and machine parts lined the walls. In one corner was a small bed and kitchen area hidden by a curtain. The room smelled like oil and metal. A coffee maker sat on a shelf, always ready to make fresh coffee. "It's not fancy," Jake said as he closed the door, "but it's home. Sit anywhere that does not have tools on it." She carefully sat down on a large metal box. Jake could see her injury better now. It looked like a burn with black edges. "Plasma weapon?" Jake asked as he got his first aid supplies. "Energy blade," she answered. 3 days ago. I tried to fix it myself, but I ran out of medical supplies yesterday." Jake opened his medical kit and brought it over. "I'm not a doctor, but I have fixed many injuries before. Can I help you?" She looked at him for a long time. Then she slowly lifted her shirt to show the wound. Jake tried not to stare. The burn was deep but clean. "You are lucky it did not get infected," Jake said. He pulled out spray medicine and bandages. "This will hurt a little." "I am a Draconian warrior," she said with pride in her voice. "I can handle pain." She was right. She barely moved as Jake cleaned the wound. As he worked, she started talking. "My name is Lyra Caney. I was a commander in the Draconian military." "Was?" Jake asked as he put a bandage on her wound. "It is complicated." She looked away. "I left for difficult reasons. Now I am going to the Outer Rim to start a new life." Jake finished the bandage and stepped back. Well, Lyra Caney, I'm Jake Morrison. I understand about starting over. She looked at him with those intense yellow eyes. Why did you help me? Your people have no agreement with mine. I do not think humans and Draconians work together at all. Jake washed his hands and poured 2 cups of coffee. Where I come from, we say, treat others the way you want to be treated. Basically, be nice to people. He gave her a cup. This is coffee. I do not know if Draconians can drink it, but it is warm. Lyra took the cup carefully. She smelled it before taking a small sip. Her eyes got wider. This is very good. Bitter but nice. Glad you like it, Jake said with a smile. He sat down across from her. Your species reminds some humans of creatures from our old stories. We call them dragons. Big reptiles with scales who could breathe fire. Some stories say they were good guardians. Other stories say they were dangerous enemies. Interesting. Lyra took another drink. We have stories about humans too. Stories say humans never give up. They can adapt to anything. They look at impossible problems and somehow solve them. Yeah, we are stubborn, Jake agreed. So you need supplies. I cannot get you into that store, but I know people who can help. Give me a list of what you need. It might take a day or 2. Lyra's face softened. She looked grateful. You would do this? Even if it might cause you trouble? Jake shrugged. I have been in trouble before. Besides, what can that store manager do? Ban me from his expensive store? There are many other stores on this station. For the first time, Lyra smiled. It changed her whole face. She looked less like a scary warrior and more like someone who had been sad for too long. You are either very brave or very foolish, Jake Morrison. Most days it is both, Jake laughed. Part 2, the next 2 days went by quickly. Jake kept his promise to Lyra. He talked to different people all around the station. He called in favors from friends and made deals with suppliers. Slowly, he collected everything she needed. Medical supplies that worked for Draconian biology, food packages, and power cells for her ship. All of it piled up in his workshop. Lyra stayed in the repair shop during this time. Jake thought she might get bored, but she actually helped him a lot. She knew a great deal about ships and how they worked. Her engineering skills matched his own. On the second morning, Lyra was looking at a ship part Jake had been struggling with for days. This power coupling is installed backward, she said. What? No way, I checked the instructions 3 times, Jake said. He walked over to look. She pointed at a tiny symbol on the metal casing. It was hard to see unless you knew what to look for. Zarian manufacturers mark their parts with these symbols. This one shows which way the power flows, see? It should be reversed. Jake stared at the marking, then looked at his instruction sheet on his tablet. She was right. The instructions were wrong. Well, I'll be damned. That would have caused a power surge when they turned it on. Your customer would have been very angry, Lyra agreed. There was amusement in her voice. They worked together all day. They fell into an easy pattern of teamwork. Jake was impressed by how much Lyra knew. She seemed to like his creative way of solving problems. Where she saw normal solutions, he saw new ways to do things. Where he saw problems, she saw simple fixes he had missed. You know, Jake said during lunch, sharing his protein bars with her, you are really good at this. Ever think about doing repair work instead of being in the military? Lyra's expression became dark. The military was not my choice. In Draconian society, the best fighters are chosen when they are young. I showed talent for fighting, so they trained me. For 20 years, I served in the fleet. What made you leave? She was quiet for a long time. Her tail curled around her feet. I was given orders I could not follow. My commanders wanted me to destroy a civilian ship. It was carrying refugees running from a war zone. They thought there might be spies on the ship, but they had no proof. Just fear and suspicion. Jake put down his food. He gave her his full attention. I refused, Lyra continued. I helped the refugee ship escape instead. For this, they called me a traitor. My ship, my crew, my honor, everything was taken away. The only reason I'm alive is because I ran away before they could kill me. That took courage, Jake said quietly. Standing up for what is right, even when it costs you everything. Or maybe I'm just a coward, she said bitterly. I abandoned my people and my duty. No, Jake said firmly. You chose to protect innocent people instead of following bad orders. That is not being a coward. That takes strength. She looked at him with curiosity. You have an interesting way of thinking, Jake Morrison. I try, he said with a real smile. And for what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud beeping sound from Jake's communication screen. He frowned and went to answer it. The face on the screen belonged to Danny Price, a human who worked at the ship docks. Jake knew him pretty well. "Jake, we have a problem," Danny said quickly. "Station security is looking for a Draconian female. They have an arrest warrant from the Draconian military. They want to take her back. They are checking all the ships and businesses in this area." Jake's stomach felt sick. He looked at Lyra. She had become very still, like a statue. "How much time do we have?" Jake asked. "They already finished checking areas A through D. You are in Area E, so maybe 1 or 2 hours at most. Look, man, I don't know what you are involved in, but be careful. The Draconian military is serious. Thanks for telling me, Danny. I owe you big time." Jake ended the call and turned to Lyra. Her face showed no emotion, but he could see she had given up hope. "So they found me faster than I thought. I should leave before I cause you trouble." "Where will you go?" Jake asked. "Your ship needs repairs. You are not fully healed yet, and you don't have all your supplies, only that is my problem, not yours. You have already done more than anyone should." Jake paced back and forth, thinking hard. Then he had an idea. "What if we hide you in plain sight?" Lyra looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Station security is looking for a Draconian female traveling alone. They are not looking for a Draconian who works as a helper to a human mechanic." Jake smiled. "Think about it. We register you as my employee. You stay in the shop. We finish getting your supplies and fixing your ship. Then you leave when things calm down." "That is crazy," Lyra said flatly. "It would never work. Do you have a better idea?" She opened her mouth but then closed it. "Actually, no. But Jake, if they find out we are lying, you will be arrested too. Hiding a criminal is a serious crime." Jake shrugged. "Then we better make sure they don't find out. Come on, we don't have much time. We need to make fake work records and make this place look like you have been working here for a while." Even though she argued, Lyra helped Jake create their fake story. They made work logs and repair records with her name on them. They even moved some of her personal things into the small living area to make it look real. 1 hour and 15 minutes later, station security arrived at the door. The lead officer was named Crix. He had green-spotted skin and 4 compound eyes that could see many things at once. 2 armed guards stood with him. Both were humanoid but had metal implants that made them stronger and faster. "Jake Morrison?" Crix's voice was professional and cold. "We are searching this sector. I need to inspect your shop." "Sure, officer," Jake said calmly, stepping aside to let them in. "What's going on?" "We are looking for a fugitive. A Draconian female about 2 meters tall with red and gold scales. She was last seen in this sector 3 days ago." Jake pretended to think about it. "Can't say I've seen anyone like that. It's usually just me working here." He paused, then added, "Well, me and my assistant." Right on time, Lyra came out from behind a large engine she had been working on. She wore a work jumpsuit like Jake's. It was now covered in grease and oil. Her scales were duller than before, covered in workshop dust. "Is something wrong?" she asked. Her tone was professional but calm. "Identification," Crix demanded. Lyra handed him a tablet without hesitating. Jake had managed to create fake work papers through a contact who did illegal things. He hoped security would not check too carefully. The officer looked at the information. His face showed nothing. "This says you have worked here for 6 weeks." "That is correct," Lyra confirmed. "Mr. Morrison hired me as a repair technician. I specialize in Draconian and Zarian ship systems." "Where were you 3 days ago?" "Here, working on a cargo ship's engine." "The work log should show the order." Jake pulled up the fake records on his computer, holding his breath as Crix looked at them. The officer spent several long minutes checking the data. "These work orders look legitimate," Crix finally said, "but I need to verify your identity against the warrant." He pulled out a small scanning device and walked toward Lyra. Jake's heart beat fast and hard. If the scanner detected her military implants, everything would fail. Lyra stood perfectly still as Crix ran the scanner over her body. The device made beeping sounds. Jake noticed one of her hands clenching tight. It was the only sign she was nervous. Finally, Crix lowered the scanner. "Interesting. You are Draconian, but your body markers show civilian status. The fugitive we want has military implants and combat modifications." Jake tried hard to keep his face normal. Lyra must have somehow hidden or removed her military implants. That took real skill and probably hurt a lot. "I'm just a technician," Lyra said calmly. "Never wanted to join the military." Crix looked at her for another moment, then nodded. Very well. Sorry for bothering you. He turned to Jake. If you see any suspicious draconian individuals, report it immediately. Absolutely, officer. Jake agreed. The security team left. Jake waited until their footsteps faded away before breathing out heavily. That was way too close. Lyra's legs suddenly gave out. Jake rushed forward and caught her before she fell. She was shaking. You removed your military implants, Jake said, helping her sit down. When? Last night, she admitted. After you told me about the warrant. I knew they would look for those markers. Draconian military training includes how to do surgery on yourself. I managed to take out most of them. Most of them? Jake stared at her with wide eyes. Are you saying you did surgery on yourself with my tools? The cutting laser worked very well, actually. She managed a weak smile. Though I would not want to do it again. Jake ran his hand through his hair. He felt amazed and shocked at the same time. You are completely insane. You know that, right? People have told me that before, she replied. But it worked, didn't it? Yeah, it did. Jake grabbed a medical kit. Now let me check those wounds before you die in my workshop. Part 3, over the next hour, Jake carefully treated the wounds where Lyra had removed her military implants. The work she had done on herself was rough but effective. She had somehow managed to avoid causing major damage while pulling out highly sensitive military hardware from her own body. Jake used antiseptic spray and fresh bandages on each spot. You are tougher than anyone I have ever met, Jake said as he finished wrapping the last bandage, including soldiers I knew back on Earth. When you need to survive, you do whatever is necessary, Lyra said. I learned a long time ago that survival means doing hard things no matter what it costs. Jake cleaned up the medical supplies and thought about what to say next. So what happens now? Security is gone, but they will be watching. We need to be smart. We need to move faster, Lyra said. My ship can be ready in 3 days if we work day and night. Once I leave, you will be safe. And what about you? Where will you go? She looked away from him. There are independent colonies in the Outer Rim, places where galactic authorities have little power. I can disappear there and start a new life. Alone? Jake asked. After everything you have been through, you will just disappear into the frontier by yourself? It is better than the alternatives. Her voice sounded empty. Better than bringing danger to people who have been kind to me. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he made a decision that would change both their lives forever. What if you didn't have to go alone? Lyra's head snapped up fast. What are you saying? I'm saying this station has been feeling pretty small lately. I have been thinking about moving on and finding new opportunities. The Outer Rim could use a good mechanic, right? Jake, you cannot be serious. You would leave your business, your home, everything you built here? It's not leaving if I'm choosing something better, he argued. Look, I came to this station 3 years ago because I wanted to be part of something bigger than Earth. But all I have done is fix broken ships for people who barely notice I exist. Maybe it's time for a real adventure. Lyra stood up and moved to face him directly. You barely know me. Why would you risk everything for a stranger? Jake met her yellow eyes steadily. Because I don't think we are strangers anymore. These past few days working together and talking, I have felt more alive than I have in years. And because everyone deserves a second chance, you deserve one. Maybe I do too. This is madness, she whispered. But Jake could see hope beginning to show in her expression. Probably. He agreed with a smile. But you know what humans are known for? Taking impossible odds and somehow making things work out. Lyra stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. If you are truly willing to do this, then I accept. But we leave as partners, not as someone helping a fugitive. Equals. Partners, Jake agreed, extending his hand. After a brief hesitation, Lyra took it. Her grip was firm and warm. The next 3 days were incredibly busy. Jake quietly started selling his larger equipment and settling his accounts with customers. He told people he was moving to a different sector for better business opportunities. It was technically true even if he left out some important details. Lyra worked non-stop on her ship. It was a sleek draconian patrol craft she had renamed the Wandering Star. The ship was small but fast with good weapons and a cargo bay. Jake helped her expand the cargo space to fit his essential tools and equipment. On the second day, Danny stopped by the workshop. Man, I heard you are really leaving. Please tell me you are not doing anything stupid. That depends on how you define stupid, Jake replied. He did not look up from the navigation computer he was programming. Danny glanced at Lyra, who was welding metal plates in the cargo bay. Then he lowered his voice. Is this about the draconian situation? Because I'm not blind, Jake. That's her, isn't it? The one they are looking for. Jake stopped working and froze. Danny, relax, Danny interrupted. I'm not going to report you. Actually, I respect what you are doing. Just promise me you will be careful. As careful as I can be, Jake said honestly. Look, this is something I need to do. I cannot fully explain it, but it feels right. Danny studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but take this. He handed Jake a small data chip. It has a list of independent traders and stations in the Outer Rim, people I have dealt with over the years. Tell them Danny Price sent you and they will treat you fairly. I don't know what to say. Just say you will stay alive and maybe contact me once in a while. Danny patted him on the shoulder. Good luck, my friend. After Danny left, Jake felt a mix of sadness and excitement. He was leaving behind the only life he had known in space, but he was also heading toward something new and unknown. The thought scared him a little, but it also made him feel truly alive for the first time in years. On the third day, as they prepared for departure, Lyra found Jake doing a final check of the workshop. Are you certain about this? Once we leave, there is no coming back. Station security will figure out what happened eventually. Jake secured the last cargo container and turned to face her. I'm certain. This place was never really home anyway. Home is supposed to be where you belong, right? I never quite felt that here. And you think you will find that in the Outer Rim? I think I will find it wherever I choose to make it, Jake said. With people who matter to me, and right now you matter. Lyra's expression softened and she stepped closer to him. You are a very strange human, Jake Morrison, but I find that I am grateful for your strangeness. That might be the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me, he joked, but his voice was sincere and warm. They finished loading everything onto the ship and ran final systems checks. All the equipment worked perfectly. Jake took one last look at the workshop that had been his home for 3 years. He felt a small pang of sadness mixed with strong excitement for what came next. No regrets? Lyra asked from the ship's boarding ramp. Maybe a few small ones, Jake admitted, but I think I would have more regrets if I stayed here. Let's go see what's out there. The Wandering Star left Station Helix 7 without any problems. It slipped into the flow of ships leaving the station. Jake watched from the co-pilot seat as the station grew smaller on the rear display screen. Countless lights marked the lives of thousands of beings continuing their daily routines, unaware of the 2 lives changing forever. Setting course for the Outer Rim territories, Lyra announced. Her fingers moved quickly across the navigation controls. The first jump will take us through the Nebulon Passage. After that, we will be outside the main patrol routes. And then what happens? Then we find somewhere to land, set up a shop, and see what happens next. She glanced at him with a small smile. I still cannot believe you are doing this. Believe it, Jake said. Besides, someone has to keep you out of trouble. I think you have that backwards, she replied, and they both laughed. They fell into comfortable silence as the ship accelerated. The stars began to stretch into long lines as they prepared for the jump to hyperspace. Jake felt a strange sense of peace settling over him. For the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Jake? Lyra's voice broke the silence. Yeah? Thank you. For everything. For seeing me when that store refused to acknowledge my existence. For helping when you had no reason to trust me. For believing in me when my own people called me a traitor. Jake leaned back in his seat and thought about his answer. You know, back on Earth, there is this concept about strangers meeting and changing each other's lives for the better. It's called serendipity. Finding something wonderful without looking for it. I think that's what this is. Serendipity, Lyra repeated slowly, testing the word. I like that very much. Me too. The hyperspace jump started, and suddenly the universe around them became a blur of light and color. They were leaving behind everything familiar and heading into the unknown with nothing but each other, a ship, and some salvaged equipment. But somehow, that felt like more than enough. It felt like the beginning of something important. As they traveled through hyperspace toward the Outer Rim, Jake thought about the future. They would need to find a place to set up a new workshop. They would need to build a customer base and stay hidden from any draconian military patrols. It would not be easy. But then again, nothing truly worthwhile ever was. Part 4, the journey through hyperspace, took several days. Jake and Lyra used the time to plan their next steps and get to know each other better. They sat in the ship's small common area, sharing meals and stories about their lives. Jake learned that Lyra had been taken from her family at age 10 to begin military training. She had barely known her parents before the draconian government decided she would be a soldier. Her entire life had been about duty, following orders and putting the military first. The decision to save those refugees had been the first time she had chosen her own conscience over her orders. "I remember standing on the bridge of my ship," Lyra said one evening as they ate together. "My weapons officer was ready to fire. All I had to do was give the command. But I kept thinking about the families on that transport. Children, elderly, people just trying to survive. They had done nothing wrong. What did you do?" Jake asked. "I told my crew there had been a mistake, that we received wrong information. Then I ordered them to escort the transport safely through the sector." Lyra's tail moved slowly. A sign Jake had learned meant she was remembering something difficult. "Some of my officers questioned the decision. They knew I was lying. But they followed the order anyway." "They trusted you," Jake said. "Yes, and I repaid that trust by making them all accomplices to treason." Lyra looked down at her hands. "Within hours, my superiors knew what I had done. They sent ships to arrest me. I had no choice but to run. I took my personal patrol craft and disappeared. My crew, the ones who trusted me, they were all arrested and questioned. I do not know what happened to them." Jake could hear the pain in her voice. "You saved innocent lives, Lyra, that matters. Your crew knew you were a good person. That's why they followed your order even when they suspected something was wrong." "Perhaps," Lyra said quietly. "Or perhaps I just destroyed the lives of everyone who believed in me." "Stop that," Jake said firmly. "You made a hard choice. The right choice. Don't torture yourself over it." Lyra looked at him with those intense amber eyes. "How do you stay so positive, Jake? How do you keep believing things will work out?" Jake thought about the question. "I guess because I have seen enough bad things to know that good things are worth fighting for. My dad used to say that hope is not about pretending bad things don't exist. It's about believing that good things are possible anyway. Your father sounds wise." "He was," Jake said with a sad smile. "He died 5 years ago. Heart attack. That's part of why I left Earth. Too many memories, you know?" "I understand," Lyra said softly. "Sometimes running away is the only way to move forward." They sat in comfortable silence for a while after that. Jake felt a connection with Lyra that went beyond just helping someone in need. They were both running from painful pasts, both trying to build something new. They understood each other in a way that did not require many words. On the 4th day of travel, the ship's navigation system alerted them that they were approaching their destination. The outer rim was a vast region of space filled with independent stations, frontier colonies, and places where galactic law had little reach. It was where people went when they wanted to disappear or start fresh. "We are coming up on Frontier Station Calypso," Lyra announced from the pilot seat. "According to the information on Danny's data chip, it's one of the larger trading posts in this region. Good place to set up a business." Jake moved to stand beside her, looking at the view screen. The station appeared ahead of them, a massive structure that looked like it had been built in pieces over many years. Different sections were clearly from different species and time periods. It looked rough and unpolished compared to Station Helix 7, but there was something honest about it too. "Looks perfect," Jake said. "Let's see if they have space for 2 more outsiders." Docking went smoothly. The station authorities barely checked their credentials, which was good, since Jake's fake papers for Lyra probably would not hold up under serious scrutiny. They paid the docking fee in universal credits and were assigned a berth in the commercial section. The station itself was loud and chaotic. The main promenade was lined with shops, bars, and services of all kinds. Aliens from dozens of species walked past, most looking like they had seen hard times. This was not a place for wealthy tourists. This was a working station for working people. Jake and Lyra spent the first day exploring and asking questions. They learned that commercial space was relatively cheap compared to the core systems. The station administrator, a grumpy Centaurian named Krill, told them that a vacant repair bay was available if they wanted it. "It's not much," Krill said, showing them the space. "Previous tenant left 3 months ago. Ran into debt troubles with the local mining guild. But the basic infrastructure is here. Power, water, waste recycling. You supply the tools and equipment. Jake looked around the space. It was bigger than his old workshop on Helix 7. The walls needed cleaning and some equipment needed replacing, but the bones were good. "How much?" he asked. Krill named a price that was surprisingly reasonable. "That's monthly, includes utilities. First month up front, then we settle up at the start of each cycle. You cause trouble, you're out. You pay on time and mind your business, we'll get along fine." "We'll take it," Jake said, looking at Lyra. She nodded in agreement. "Good. I'll send over the lease agreement. Welcome to Calypso, humans." Krill paused. "Wait, one of you is not human." "Draconian," Lyra said calmly. "Huh. Don't see many of your kind out here." "Well, doesn't matter to me, long as you pay your rent." With that, Krill left them alone. Jake and Lyra stood in their new empty workshop. It smelled like old metal and stale air, but it was theirs. "This is really happening," Lyra said quietly. "We are actually doing this." "Yeah," Jake agreed. "We are, so what should we call this place?" They spent the evening discussing names while they started moving equipment from the ship. Jake wanted something that represented both of them working together. After many suggestions and debates, they finally agreed on a name. "Star-Crossed Repairs," Lyra said, testing how it sounded. "Because we are both outsiders who crossed paths by chance." "And because our meeting changed everything," Jake added. "I like it. Star-Crossed Repairs it is." Over the next week, they worked together to transform the empty bay into a functioning workshop. Jake set up his tools and equipment, while Lyra organized the space with military efficiency. They painted a sign for the front that read, "Star-Crossed Repairs, Human and Draconian Engineering. We fix what others can't," in multiple languages. Their first customer arrived on the 8th day. A nervous Voltarian freighter captain needed his ship's cooling system repaired quickly. He looked uncertain when he saw Lyra, but Jake's friendly attitude and fair price convinced him to take a chance. The repair went perfectly. Jake and Lyra worked together smoothly, their combined skills making the job quick and efficient. The captain was so pleased that he paid them a bonus and promised to recommend them to other traders. "That went well," Jake said after the captain left. "First customer, first success. We make a good team," Lyra agreed. There was something in her voice that made Jake look at her more closely. She was smiling, a genuine expression of happiness he had rarely seen on her face. "Yeah," he said softly, "we really do." Word spread quickly on the station. The unusual pairing of a human and a draconian mechanic attracted attention. Some species were skeptical at first, but Jake's skill and Lyra's knowledge won them over. Within 2 weeks, they had a steady stream of customers. Jake noticed that Lyra was changing. The tension that had been in her shoulders slowly disappeared. She smiled more often. Sometimes he even heard her humming while she worked. The haunted look in her eyes faded, replaced by something calmer and more content. One evening, as they closed up the shop for the day, Lyra turned to Jake. "I want to thank you again. For everything. You gave me a chance when you had no reason to. You risked your safety for mine, and now you have given me something I never thought I would have again." "What's that?" Jake asked. "A home," Lyra said simply. "Not just a place to sleep, but a real home. Somewhere I belong. Someone who cares if I am there." Jake felt emotion tighten his throat. "You gave me the same thing, Lyra. Before I met you, I was just going through the motions. Working to survive, but not really living. You changed that. You gave me a purpose again." They stood there in the workshop, surrounded by the tools of their trade and the evidence of their partnership. Two beings from different worlds who had found something neither expected to find. Understanding, friendship, maybe something even deeper, though neither was quite ready to name it yet. "Partners," Lyra said. Extending her hand. "Partners," Jake agreed, taking it, and in that moment both knew they had made the right choice. Part 5. 3 months passed quickly on Frontier Station Calypso. Star-Crossed Repairs became one of the busiest workshops on the station. Jake and Lyra's reputation grew with each successful job. They could fix almost anything, and their prices were fair. Word traveled through the independent trader networks, and soon ships were coming specifically to see the human and draconian team. The work was hard but satisfying. Jake enjoyed the challenge of different repair jobs every day. Lyra seemed to thrive in this new life, her engineering knowledge making her invaluable. They developed an easy rhythm of working together, often knowing what the other needed without having to speak. But more than the work, Jake valued the friendship that had grown between them. They spent evenings in the small apartment above the workshop, sharing meals and stories. Lyra taught Jake about draconian culture and history. Jake introduced her to human music and movies. They laughed together, argued occasionally about repair methods, and supported each other through difficult days. One evening, Jake was closing up the shop when he noticed Lyra staring at a news feed on her datapad. Her expression was hard to read. "Something wrong?" he asked, walking over to her. "They have stopped looking for me," she said quietly. "The draconian military has officially declared me dead." Killed while resisting arrest, Jake felt his chest tighten. "How do you feel about that?" Lyra set down the datapad and looked up at him. "Free. For the first time in my entire life, I am truly free to choose my own path. No one is looking for me. No one expects anything from me. I can just be Lyra Caney, repair technician. Is that what you want to be?" She smiled, and it was the warmest, most genuine smile Jake had ever seen from her. "Yes, I want to be exactly this. Working here with you, building something that matters, something good." Jake sat down beside her. "You know, when I first saw you in that store being turned away by that idiot manager, I never imagined this. Never thought we would end up here running a business together, becoming friends. More than friends," Lyra said softly. The words hung in the air between them. Jake looked at her, his heart beating faster. Over these past months, his feelings for Lyra had grown into something deeper than friendship. He cared about her in a way that went beyond partnership or gratitude. But he had been afraid to say anything, worried about complicating what they had built together. "Yeah," he admitted, "more than friends." Lyra's tail moved slowly, a gesture Jake had learned meant she was feeling emotional. "I never expected to feel this way about anyone, especially not a human. But you have shown me kindness I never knew existed. You believed in me when I did not believe in myself. You gave me a home when I had nowhere to go." "You did the same for me," Jake said. "I was lost before I met you, Lyra, just going through the motions of living. You reminded me what it means to care about something, to care about someone." They sat close together, the workshop quiet around them. Outside, the station's artificial evening cycle had begun, dimming the lights to simulate night. "What happens now?" Lyra asked. Jake thought about it. "I think we keep doing what we're doing. We keep building this life we've started. We keep fixing ships and helping people. And we see where this goes, together." "Together," Lyra repeated. She reached out and took his hand. Her scaled fingers intertwined with his, and Jake felt a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with temperature. The weeks that followed brought new challenges and opportunities. A local mining company approached them about a long-term maintenance contract for their fleet. It would mean steady income and expand their business significantly. Jake and Lyra discussed it carefully and decided to accept. They hired their first employee, a young Zarian named Kel who showed real talent for engineering. Lyra took him under her wing, teaching him advanced repair techniques. Jake was amused to see how naturally she fell into the role of mentor. "You are good at teaching," he told her one day as they watched Kel successfully complete a difficult repair on his own. "I never thought I would say this, but I enjoy it," Lyra admitted. "In the military, everything was about following orders and maintaining discipline. Here I can actually help someone grow and learn. It feels meaningful." Their personal relationship also deepened. They moved from the separate sleeping areas to sharing the apartment's main bedroom. It felt natural and right, like everything else between them had. Their connection was built on mutual respect, shared experiences, and genuine affection. The fact that they came from different species seemed irrelevant compared to how well they understood each other. One evening, 6 months after arriving at Calypso, Jake and Lyra stood on the station's observation deck. Through the large windows they could see the stars stretching out in all directions. Ships came and went carrying people and goods across the galaxy. "Do you ever regret it?" Lyra asked. "Leaving your old life behind? Giving up everything for this?" Jake looked at her, at the way the starlight reflected in her amber eyes, at the peaceful expression on her face. "Not for a second. This is the best decision I ever made. You are the best thing that ever happened to me." Lyra leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "I feel the same. I spent 20 years in the military, thinking I was serving a greater purpose. But this, what we have built together, this feels like the real purpose, helping people, making a difference in small but real ways, and doing it with someone I love." It was the first time either of them had used that word. love. But it felt right and true. "I love you too," Jake said softly. They stood together, watching the stars, two souls from different worlds who had found each other against impossible odds. The galaxy was vast and often cruel, but it could also bring people together in unexpected ways. A year after they first met, Star-Crossed Repairs had become one of the most respected businesses on Frontier Station Calypso. Jake and Lyra had expanded their operation, moved to a larger space, and employed 3 additional technicians. Their reputation had spread throughout the Outer Rim, but more important than their business success was what they had built personally. They had created a home, not just a place to live, but a real home filled with warmth and care. They had found family in each other. One day, a familiar face appeared at their workshop. Danny Price, Jake's old friend from Station Helix 7, walked through the door with a huge smile. "I heard rumors there was a human and draconian repair team making waves out here," Danny said. "Had to come see if it was really you two." Jake laughed and embraced his friend. "Danny, what are you doing all the way out here?" "Got a new job with a trading company that operates in the Rim. Thought I would look you up." Danny looked around the workshop, impressed. "You have done well for yourself, man. Really well." "We have done well," Jake corrected, gesturing to Lyra. "Could not have done any of this without her." Danny extended his hand to Lyra. "It's good to see you again. I'm glad that risk Jake took worked out." "So am I," Lyra said, shaking his hand. "Your information about Outer Rim traders was invaluable. We owe you a debt of gratitude." "No debt," Danny said. "Just friends helping friends. That's what matters, right?" They spent the evening catching up, sharing stories about their adventures over the past year. Danny told them about the changes on Station Helix 7, and Jake realized he did not miss it at all. His old life felt like it belonged to a different person. After Danny left the next day, promising to visit again soon, Jake and Lyra stood together in their workshop. The space was busy with activity, their employees working on various projects, customers coming and going. It was exactly what they had hoped to build. "You know what I was thinking?" Jake said. "That day in the store when I first saw you being turned away, I made a split-second decision to help. I had no idea where it would lead." "Are you glad you made that decision?" Lyra asked. "It is the single best decision I have ever made," Jake said firmly. "That moment changed my entire life for the better." Lyra smiled and took his hand. "Mine too. You saw me when others refused to. You offered help when you had every reason to walk away. You whispered, 'Come with me,' and I trusted you." "Best decision I ever made. Come with me," Jake repeated softly. 3 simple words that started everything. 3 simple words that saved my life, Lyra added, and gave me a new one worth living. They stood together in their workshop, surrounded by the life they had built. 2 outsiders who had found each other by chance and created something beautiful through choice. Their story was not about grand gestures or epic battles. It was about kindness, trust, and the simple act of seeing someone's worth when others refused to look. Sometimes the greatest adventures begin not with a dramatic call to action, but with a quiet invitation. Come with me. 3 words that can change everything. Jake and Lyra had taken a chance on each other, and in doing so, they had found what everyone searches for: belonging, purpose, love, and a place in the universe they could truly call home. As they went back to work, side by side as always, they knew that whatever challenges the future brought, they would face them together. Partners in business and in life, bound not by law or duty but by choice and affection. The galaxy was vast, but for Jake and Lyra, it had become smaller and more welcoming. They had found their place among the stars, and they had found each other. Nothing else mattered quite as much as that simple truth: the end.